Welcome to Elite Expert Insider Podcast, where we will inspire, motivate, and educate entrepreneurs, innovators, and growth seekers. Brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, making the best and brightest in the industry #1 best-selling authors. 80% of people say they want to write a book. We're assuming that's the same for you. If so, contact us at www.eliteonlinepublishing.com and make your book a reality. Hey, Melanie Johnson here along with Jen Foster. How you doing, Jen?
Doing great.
Good. Well, we have another fabulous podcast for you today. If you're looking for a transformation in your life, then you're going to want to stay tuned and listen to this. So make sure that you do subscribe to our podcast because I don't want you to miss a thing. If you subscribe, then you'll be notified of everyone that we have on our podcast and who's coming up, and we don't want you to miss any of these great interviews. Also, we want to tell you about, we're big into journaling and telling your story, and we have 1,500 books on Amazon. Really, 1,500, that's a lot. Well, two of the favorites are Be a Pineapple. It's a blank journal, and this is just such a happy book. Look at, our guest is smiling right now, looking at the cover.
I love it.
So it says, be a pineapple, stand tall, wear a crown, and be sweet inside. This is like our #1 bestseller on Amazon, and we want you to have a copy as well. So make sure you get your Be a Pineapple blank journal so you can write your life story. And then we have this one, which I love too. It's black. It's kind of more sophisticated, and it just says, write it down. And what happens when you write stuff down, when you write your goals down, they tend to come true. So write down your dreams, your goals, your wants, your needs, your successes every day, and get a write it down journal. Either one of those are fabulous. So we have Wylene Benson with us today. She is an author, and her expertise is that if you are feeling like you're a little bit lost in your life, trying to figure your purpose, trying to find your direction, and maybe things have derailed you. Maybe you had an addiction that took you the wrong way, or maybe it was just a divorce, or maybe just life threw you off course. She's here to work with you to get your GPS back going. Wylene, thank you for coming today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So tell us, Wylene, a little bit of your background and kind of how you got into this expertise of finding people and getting them their GPS for success.
Awesome. Thank you. It has seriously just been a journey for me. I've been involved in personal development for many years and really focused on creating success for myself, but for some reason it just seemed to always elude me. And about 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago actually, I had a heart attack, and it was the doctor told me that it was caused by stress, and because of that, it really gave me an opportunity. I had 6 weeks of recovery to just sit in my front room and have no stress, no physical activity. So everybody just waited on me. I did a lot of journaling. That's why I was really excited to see those journals, because that really was one of the key pieces that helped me see why I had that heart attack. What happened was my heart, half of it just shut down. It just quit working. And as I was journaling one day, I wrote the words, I've been making a half-hearted attempt at finding my purpose. And when I wrote that, it was like this huge light bulb came on, and I was like, wow, my heart was just complying with what the life that I was creating for myself. I didn't need that other half of my heart because I was only living a half-hearted life. So that was really kind of the turning point and the crossroads for me to be able to start putting 100% effort and 100% of my heart into finding my purpose and to creating success for myself.
It's so interesting how your body reacts to your thoughts and how you're living. Like, you don't think that. I always tell people, you feel like you're managing stress well, you think you're doing this, but it goes somewhere. And however you're living your life, it's got to go somewhere. It's hard to be perfect, but you got to go somewhere. So walk us through, what is one of the first things that you do with someone when they come into your program and you start to coach them?
The very first thing that we do is what I call a strategy session. And that's basically just getting really into their hearts of what they want, maybe what has been eluding them. And I just start asking some questions. Yesterday I was talking to a young man, and he had just moved across the country, and he had moved from a place where he felt like he was on top of the world. And then he got to this new place, and even though everybody was really nice and everything, it just was really hard for him to find that place of success again. And so I just asked him questions and really found out what was missing in his life. Like, what was he specifically seeking for? And I just feel like I have a gift of being able to hear the words underneath the words. So I could hear really what he was trying to say. And so I was just able to just kind of repeat some things back and share with him what I felt. And we honed in just in about 15 or 20 minutes. We were able to hone in on what he was really seeking for and what he was missing in his life. And from that point forward, I gave him an assignment, which was to journal, to really write down who you are. I said, just write down based on what you've learned today in our conversation, write down who you are, and then let me know when you get that done. So that was his first assignment. And so we'll just talk. A lot of times I will do a breakthrough with them. We'll kind of maybe even go back to a memory from childhood or whatever to really break through what it is that's holding them back from truly stepping into being their authentic and 100% self.
I love that. I think it's really important what you said about, having that person like yourself that you can go to for that, to know what and talk through and figure out that breakthrough. Because, a lot of times, we journal on our own, or we think we've got it, but we really haven't figured it out. And we wonder why we keep hitting walls. And it's because we don't have a coach or a mentor like you to kind of walk us through and get that breakthrough.
Yeah,
exactly.
And then what do you think? So once you discover some of these, I want to call them like aha moments, like, oh my gosh, I realized that this happened in my childhood, or I realized this happened. What do they do then?
Well, once they really discover, because we're taking them back to where the decision was created, there was some sort of a decision made that, I can't be successful because, I'm not free to express myself, fully, or whatever it is, that it was, that was the decision. So once we get back to that moment and they realize, maybe this was a decision that was made when they were 5 years old or, 10 years old or something like that. And it's like, wow, this 5-year-old has been running my life for 30 years.
I love that. I love that.
So once they realize that, then it's just a logical choice. It's just like, you know what, I'm going to choose into something different. And, I have a process that I take them through that really helps them shift that memory so that if they ever do go back to the memory, it's a happy moment. It's a grateful moment. It's like, wow, I'm so grateful that I had that experience, rather than if I hadn't had that experience, I'd be so much further along.
I'm going to share an experience with my son. He used to have this terrible fear of rain. So if it rained, he would get anxiety, and it was awful. And so we finally pinpointed it, like what you were saying, is going back to, well, where did this start, and trying to figure that out. And we figured it out when he was probably 4 or 5 years old. It's that 5-year-old again, that we were at a baseball game with the kids, and a storm came in, and we all ran. And I can't remember, either my husband or I grabbed my other child, and we ran to the car. We realized, nobody had Nathan. Where's Nathan? And everybody, took off running, and he was standing out there basically by himself with this storm, like a wet puppy dog, scared to death. And so this fear, like, of being abandoned and, being afraid of the rain. And, I went and swooped him up and brought him in. I said, but you know what, Nathan, you're living still where you didn't get to the end of the story. The end of the story was someone came and got you and saved you and took you to a warm, dry place and loved you. And he goes, You're right. I stopped the story too soon. So he had the 5-year-old running his life of creating anxiety about rain that was, stopping him from moving forward. So I was just cracking up about that.
Wow. And that is so, so true. And that's what happens, is that 5-year-old will make a decision in his or her mind, and then carry that forward, and it will affect relationships, and abandonment, things like that, that could carry forward clear, forever, unless that pattern is interrupted and they go back and say, oh, wow, yeah, I was really cared for and I wasn't abandoned. And yeah, it created a different decision.
Yeah. What's the rest of that story? So how do you see people moving forward afterwards? What are some of the transformations that they have in their life?
There, when this transformation happens, you know, when this this understanding happens, then it just like creates this feeling of being lighter, being free to create. You know, it's like, wow, my life, it's just like I'm starting a brand new book. You know, I'm not, you know, having to muddle through this old story that I used to have. It's really is just like the first day of the rest of your life. And so from that point, and of course, you know, we don't solve the world's problems in one 30-minute session, you know. So I do love it when people will choose into working with me on a regular basis so that we can tackle all those limiting beliefs as they come up, because as you start taking steps forward, what I call a leap of faith is the very first step. And that's choosing something that you haven't ever dared tell yourself that you were, you know, you could actually create before, doing, you know, some sort of a stretch, creating some sort of a stretch, taking a leap of faith. And then once you step out of your comfort zone, then all of a sudden new limiting beliefs will come up because you're in a different place. And you'll notice, you know, a new something, you know, that was maybe blocking you in the past, or that you didn't even know because you've never stepped in that direction. So I give them tools and resources for them to be able to really go in and address those. They can do it themselves. I teach them a very simple 3-step process of how to tackle those limiting beliefs. And many times they become just so proficient at it that they can even share that process with family, friends, you know, whoever, and that, you know, empowers them even more.
Well, share it with us. We want to know some of that
Okay.
process.
Yeah, I would love to. This process is actually going to be outlined in my new book that's coming out right now. I was just telling Jan right before we got on this podcast that I'm actually thinking of changing the name to GPS for Success, or GPS to Success. But right now the name is Leap: The Inspired Path to Sustainable Success. So maybe a little bit of a mouthful, and so I'm thinking maybe the other one's a little bit more concise. But I do outline this in detail in my book. But I'll give you the 3 basic steps. And that is, number 1, you're just identifying the limiting belief. So, and I just teach people to go to intuition, because if you try to figure it out with your brain, if you try to go to past experience or whatever, you're just going to get more of the same of what you already had figured out. And so if you're trying to hear something different, then you need to go to intuition. So just getting grounded, take a deep breath, close your eyes, just really get into your heart and ask that question: what's the limiting belief that's stopping me from moving forward? And it will come to you. And it's usually something really concise, like I'm not good enough, or I don't have enough experience, or people don't like me, or, you know, it's usually something really super concise, and we can work with that. So that's step 1, is just identifying that limiting belief. And then the second step is to examine the cost of it, because with the law of attraction, you know that whatever you're putting out into the universe, you're going to get back. So examine the cost. If I have a belief that I'm not good enough, then regardless of how much time and effort and money and, you know, whatever that I put into what I'm trying to create, I'm never going to be good enough if I have that belief I'm not good enough. So is that okay? Do you want to keep that belief, or do you want to change it up for something different? And then usually people are ready to change as soon as they identify it and see what the cost is. And they'll switch that up for some new beliefs. So they'll choose into things like, I am good enough. And then I'll teach them to find evidence that says you really are good enough. Tell me about some of the past successes that you have had. You know, even if it was a spelling bee in 3rd grade that you won, you were good enough to win that spelling bee. And, you know, regardless of how long ago it was. So choosing some of those new beliefs, and then really putting some emotion behind that, and reading them on a daily basis, visualizing yourself in areas where you have been successful, and transforming that into, yes, I am good enough to take this next step towards my new success. So that's the 3-step process, just really in a nutshell.
I love it.
Yeah, works really well.
That's great. Well, you know, I think a lot of times we think we have a limiting belief, but then we don't really identify it, like you said. And sometimes you just catch yourself, like the self-talk that you do. Like I have a mentor who's switching his, because he had a limiting belief that he can't speak Spanish. And so he's switching that to say, I can speak Spanish. I'm great at Spanish. And then he's talking about, and he's trying to learn, of course, every day. But when you flub up, or if you're talking to someone in Spanish and you keep repeating, I can't speak Spanish, or I don't speak Spanish, or Spanish is hard, then that is putting all these limiting beliefs. So sometimes you can identify them with what you're saying, but other times you have to really think, what is that limiting belief? Why does that keep happening?
And one thing I've noticed too, that if we stick with those limiting beliefs, like I don't speak Spanish, or I can't learn Spanish or whatever, it kind of gives us a cop out. It's like gives us an excuse of why we don't have to try as hard. Mm-hmm. Or, if we make a mistake, it's like, oh yeah, well, I just can't speak Spanish. So it doesn't even give us permission to get better because we have this limiting belief. Mm-hmm. And what I've learned is that what you were talking about before, a lot of times it's just fear. It's fear of stepping forward. So we'll choose into a limiting belief that will stop us from stepping forward so we don't have to face the fear. But I've learned that if I'm feeling fear, that means there's a limiting belief there. And so that just is my cue. Okay, what's the limiting belief that's at the root of this fear? And then I go into my process.
Mm-hmm. That's good to know. That's really great advice. I love the 3-step program. I mean, that's really simple. I mean, you could even teach it to a child, a teenager, anybody, not just for adults. It's like you say, sure. Start when you're 5 years old. So if you can nip them nip them in the butt young.
And you know what, as parents, regardless of how hard we try, we're going to mess some things up. We're going to leave our kids in the rain. I actually left my daughter standing on a dock when we were at Lake Powell on a houseboat. We started backing up and I looked up and my daughter was standing on the dock and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I saw her, because if we got out, on the water and I couldn't find her, I would have totally freaked out.
Well, I thought somebody else had her. Didn't you have her?
Exactly. So you're not the only one. But if we as parents are conscious that, they could be taking on a limiting belief at that moment, take a moment, sit down and talk to them and, not like totally freak out, but to say, I love you, I want you with me, whatever it is that they might be experiencing. And hopefully, we can kind of, like you said, nip that in the bud.
Yeah. And tell the rest of the story, because some people don't get to the happy. Like your daughter could have felt abandoned, but it's like, well, we came back for you,
Yes.
You weren't there. You weren't there the whole time by yourself. Well, tell us where we can find you.
Oh, thank you. I have a website, wylenebenson.com, WYLENEBENSON.com. It's under construction right now, but it's getting there. And you can also find me on Facebook. I have a Facebook business page, Wylene Benson, author, speaker, mentor. And oh gosh, those are probably the two best. I also have a Facebook group. We do a gratitude call every single morning because I feel like gratitude and accountability are the two things that allow you to stop creating what you don't want to create and begin to step into something new. So we do a gratitude call every morning, and all that information is on my Facebook group called Breakthrough with Gratitude. And we do breakthrough, that 3-step process, and we do gratitude on that call every morning. So those are some really great ways. And watch for my new book coming out. I do have 3 other books that are currently available. And I don't know, do you want me to tell you what those are? Or
go ahead.
Okay. My first 2 are actually anthologies where I have a chapter. One of them is Entrepreneur on Fire, Conversations with Visionary Leaders. And I do have an experience as a business coach as well. The second one is Success Through Failing, and I give you a lot of details. That story is about my heart attack, where there was, kind of perceived failure, but it actually turned into being success for me, kind of a catalyst for success. And then the third book is Limitless, and it's co-authored with Chris Crone. And that one, it talks about the lightning breakthrough process, which is the 3-step process I just told you about, and also a 9-step deeper process that goes back to childhood. And then my new book that is coming out is, right now, the placeholder name is Leap, the Inspired Path to Sustainable Success.
Awesome. Thank you.
Love it. We love people that write books and brand themselves with a book. It's the best way to get authority and become an expert in your field. If you're looking to write a book or become a best-selling author, we would love to work with you at Elite Online Publishing. You can find us at our website, eliteonlinepublishing.com, or on our Facebook. We have over 50 authors that we've made #1 bestsellers, and we have over 1,500 books and journals on Amazon. So we know what we're doing. So contact us if you would like to write a book, and make sure you subscribe to our podcast, because we always have great people, great guests on, just like Wylene, that teach you awesome things that will make your life better every day. We're here to inspire you, motivate you, and educate you with our podcast. So we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you.
If you'd like to create the most powerful advertising tool for your business, contact us at eliteonlinepublishing.com, where we will help you create, publish, and make your book a #1 bestseller, and show you how to get new leads and more revenue for your business. If you'd like to check us out on our Facebook page, we have a free book for you as our gift. Just go and click free book. Remember to subscribe and leave a comment for our podcast. We would love to hear from you.